The DPR of the Delhi Metro said that in 2005, when 60 kilometers are completed, 29 lakh people will ride it per day. The actual ridership was 6 lakhs in 2005. Then they said we are going to have phase 2, and we'll make, when it becomes 160 kilometers, when they realized what the experience was of the Delhi Metro, they brought down the expected ridership for 160 kilometers, and they made it just 1 lakh more than 60 kilometers. It's amazing that 60 kilometers was supposed to carry 29 lakhs, and 160 kilometers then was supposed to carry 30 lakhs. And today it is carrying 15 lakhs. So the experience is that in our cities like Delhi, all over the world, carry about 10,000 passengers per kilometer of metro. And this is not going to increase. And therefore, your cost subsidy, including cost of capital, per passenger in Delhi today is 35,000 rupees a year. So if you are going to subsidize upper middle class people to travel by 35,000 rupees a year, it's hugely undemocratic and anti-social welfare. Because why should a student spend 2 hours going to and fro, then take a rickshaw at Delhi University for 10, 15 rupees, spend 50 rupees a day, get subsidized by 35,000 rupees a year? Why don't you make a hostel? It'll be cheaper. And then they'll spend those 2 hours studying. So it's cheaper to make hostels for students than put them in metros. This is experience of cities around the world, except Hong Kong, which is an anomaly in the world because they didn't have land. There's no major city in the world, for example, London, 47%, they have 1,000 kilometers of rail and metro. 47% of people go by car. In Delhi today, only 18% go by car. So there's no evidence from the world that providing fast public transport, less people use the car as they become richer. In all Paris, London, Manhattan, everywhere more than 40% of the trips are by private car. This is an interesting analysis we've done, sorry. What this shows is that just provision of public transport does not give you low car use rates. Only those cities in Europe have low car use rates where walking and cycling is high. So unless your provision of walking and cycling is high, people do not use public transport because for each trip by public transport, you have to walk 2 times. So unless walking is safe from crime and road accidents, people don't use public transport. And there's not a single road in India, in any city, where you can walk safely. They are safe from crime because of street vendors. If you remove the street vendors, only place where women are bothered on the street are rich colonies which don't allow street vendors. Wherever you have hawkers on the road, our cities are very safe for women. And therefore, we must have hawkers on the street. And since all our roads have to have a tree line, you have to have 1.5 meters for the tree line. And so that you can give, and each hawker only occupies 1.5 meters. So the hawkers can be put in the middle of trees along the tree line. And they provide fantastic services. And they are free police, because the police gets information from hawkers. If you remember 2 blasts in Delhi, the information they've got about the blast is from the hawker. The police didn't know about it. And if you, those of us who are older, the old Hindi movies always showed the hero who was a policeman collecting information from a beggar or a hawker, which continues until today. And so we find that you have to have hawkers to have good cities. Because of carbon dioxide, all our understanding of transport is changing. This is what the London head of New London Architecture says: one-way streets reflect the dominance of the car and the failed go-faster policies of traffic engineers. As we begin to realize that walking and cycling should be the dominant forms of transport, the one-way street should be consigned to the dustbin of history. This is in 2010 from London. And all these signal-free roads don't allow people to cross the road. And so we're destroying the fabric of the city by making wide roads. We've just started a study on which cities have more deaths and which cities have less deaths. It turns out that those cities which have wide avenues have more deaths than those cities which have narrower avenues. Within the state of California, A city which has wide avenues has 5 times the death rate than a city in the same state which has narrower streets. So all our new cities which have been planned have been designed to kill people by making 6-lane roads inside the city. This is just to show you that wherever there are elevated structures, the road on the ground remains congested. No elevated transport system has reduced congestion anywhere in the world. And this is the experience of Delhi. This is very interesting. I'll just finish a few minutes. This shows that children, there's a study from Europe, that children who live on narrow roads have 3 friends on an average, and children who live on wide roads have 0.9 friends on an average. So when you have so children controlling for income, children grow up without friends if you live on a wide road. And so rich people have understood this. So they move to suburbs with narrow roads around their homes so that children can walk around. And so by having wide roads, you destroy social interaction between children and old people. My father, before he died 2 years ago, he was very unhappy that he could not cross the road to meet his brother in Panchsheel Park. We had to drive him to meet his brother. And so we are destroying our cities for half the population by this preoccupation with wide roads and elevated roads. This is dysfunction of design. This shows in London. This was a station earlier, and people did not like to use the station. There was a lot of crime. This was changed to make it completely transparent, just the design change and nothing else. And that increased the number of people who started using public transport, because transparent systems, then criminals don't act because they think that the people here, someone may be sitting upstairs on the first floor in this building who can see what is happening at the station. I'll skip this. This basically shows that no one who earns 6,000 rupees or less in Delhi should spend even 1 rupee on transport, which means that 30% of Delhi's population should not be forced to use public transport, because if they do, which they are being forced by they can't bicycle because of the flyovers, then they have to spend money, 20 rupees a day or 30 rupees a day on the bus, and that money goes from their children's food and from their children's books. So by removing bicycling, 30% of the population of cities, children will suffer. They will not get educated properly, and so for 20 years from now, we'll have uneducated children because of our road design. And I'll end with showing you everyone says for dedicated bus lanes, you need wide streets. This is rubbish. Within the last 10 years, please forget Bogota and Gang. Go to European cities. What the mayor of Paris has done, in a 2-lane street, there's 1 lane reserved for buses. You don't need wide streets for public transport. So you can see there's a very narrow street, 1 lane is only for buses, and only 1 for cars, 1 way. This is cars, 2 lanes, bus, 1 lane. So no matter what the width of the street, and it's amazing, once the mayor of Paris did this, they don't know where the cars went. They just disappear. And people start using buses because it becomes much easier. So you don't need wide roads for dedicated bus lanes. This is lesson number 1 we must understand. Buses, all public transport and taxis must have dedicated lanes. This is a 2-lane road, 1 lane for buses, 1 lane, 1 way. This is a wide road where if you have a wide road, there should be no arterial road in a city which is more than 6 lanes. 3 lanes in each direction, only 2 for cars and 1 for buses. And then if it gets crowded, it gets crowded. That's your market signal. That is crowded. You don't come here now. Go somewhere else. So we are defeating we believe in free market and everything else for supermarkets, but the road is exactly the opposite. You don't build a restaurant and want to keep it empty. You want people to line up outside your restaurant. When we build a road, we want to keep it empty. We have to fill it for it to be used. And if you have more than 6 lanes then pedestrians can't cross the road, because the pedestrian signal is 30 seconds, and in 30 seconds you can't walk more than 24 meters. Therefore, no motorized traffic should not occupy more than 24 meters of the road in any city. That's the widest road. Preferably, all roads should be 4-lane or 2-lane, and the main artery should be 6 lanes with 2 lanes reserved for buses. And the latest evidence is that you need high density public transport networks on the surface with medium capacity. So every major road should have a bus system which carries 15,000 people per hour per direction, instead of 30,000 in half the elevated underground systems. Now, so therefore, for the future city, your preconditions are that no road should be more than 24 meters wide for motorized traffic. Shops and street vendors on every street. Traffic lights should be there every 800 meters, because when you have traffic lights every 800 meters, your speeds don't go high during lean periods, so your deaths go down dramatically. No lane width should not be more than 3 meters. At present, our lane width is 3.5 meters, which is not allowed in any European city. Lane widths are 3 meters, because when you reduce it 3 meters, then the system becomes like on the BRT corridor in Delhi. Before the BRT corridor was constructed in Delhi, yes, this last one. Before the BRT corridor was constructed, on that stretch there used to be 12 to 20 deaths per year. This is the police data. Under construction, there were 5 deaths. But all the newspapers, when the deaths reduced by 50%, although newspapers called it the death corridor, and no matter what evidence you supplied to them, not one newspaper published it. So I don't know who paid off the newspapers to tell lies. After operation, in the first year, there were some deaths because the buses started going in 90 kilometers an hour. When we found that out in 2010, the bus speeds were controlled. In 2010, there were 0 deaths on that corridor, 0. No change, no education, no policing. Just by design, deaths came to 0. Which newspaper has reported it? So we're living in a very corrupt society, run by newspapers who have businesses, who do not report even facts, and fool the people into designing cities which will be death traps in our future. Thank you very much.